welcome to Talking Cars. I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
I'm Michael Crossan.
And I'm Steve Ellick.
So today we are going to talk about the 2023 Honda CR-V Hybrid. So this is our second CR-V. We've already talked about the regular CR-V a bit and used the words like evolutionary, not revolutionary, functionality. And it was no surprise, certainly, that Honda put this hybrid powertrain into a super popular functional vehicle. In fact, we were talking about it, Steve. In 2022, the CR-V was only outsold by, you were right, the RAV4 and the two big trucks, the Silverado and the F-150. You don't think of the CR-V as being such a high volume vehicle, or at least I don't have it in my mental order, but it definitely is. So no surprise that they're adding the hybrid. A little bit of a price premium, about $4,500 difference over the non-hybrid. And fuel economy wise, non-hybrid was 27 city, 32 highway, 29 overall EPA. I will say we didn't quite get that. And then the hybrid is 40 city, 34 highway, 37 combined. It points out two things, I think. One, that for hybrids, that city number goes way up. That's where they excel. If you're a stop and go, parent, or your commute stop and go or city driver, hybrids could be really great. And that our city course is challenging. Our highway course, because it's done on the highway, is 65 miles per hour. Pretty modest for many highways, but that our city course is challenging because that's where we sometimes don't get the same.
But it does simulate real world driving a little bit better than EPA, right?
Oh,
it
absolutely.
Like,
yes, absolutely. It's just a stop and go course out here, but it's more challenging than the EPA city.
Yeah, it's a rigorous course.
Yeah.
Acceleration, braking, and I would say it simulates it pretty well. I actually got to drive this particular CR-V in New York City last week.
There you go.
And, lots of quick bursts of acceleration and slamming on the brakes when taxis cut you off. And that's kind of what our city course
For real?
tries to emulate.
See, so it's a New York City course. We'll call it the true city course. But yeah, and it does, that's where we typically, if we're not going to meet EPA, it's often in the city because 65 miles per hour, quite honestly, is pretty modest. So your impressions of the CR-V hybrid in its own right and how it compares to the non-hybrid. Mike, we'll start with you.
Sure. In a lot of ways, it's very similar to the non-hybrid. It does a lot of the same functionality and usability things, but you do get that hybrid component. I think the best part here is you almost don't know it's a hybrid. I think you could put a lot of people in it, not tell them it's a hybrid, and they would have no idea. You almost can't tell when you go from EV mode and the gas motor turns on. You have to really pay attention to hear it, to feel it. And they've done that really seamlessly. And I think that's probably the sort of the biggest highlight for this. I think it makes the hybrid a little bit more maybe welcoming to people who've never had one. And it just makes it feel pretty comfortable and welcoming and normal.
That's always my judgment. I always say, I want to be in a hybrid or an EV, but I don't want to know I'm in. I don't want all the cues that say, oh my gosh, you're in something different. So to me, that's a huge highlight that you may not know. And you touched on one thing, and Steve, I'll let you, is noise. I know we've been completely a mixed bag on whether we think this car is noisy or not. I drove it. I don't think it's particularly noisy. I know there's been many hybrids where when that gas engine kicks in, we're like, whoa, I didn't feel it. But I know there's others, and it gets to what noise bothers you. It's not just volume, but what type of noise bothers you. I didn't mind it so much. I would be quite happy. But Steve,
I found this to be quite loud, actually, but not from the engine. It is loud from the engine perspective. I can tell when the gas motor turns on and starts going because it has, it kind of has that like coarse, raspy noise when you get on it. But it's more road noise. I felt road noise and wind noise. It just seemed. It seemed loud to go over the bumps, and that's maybe the tires that they're optimized for hybrids and gas mileage, so maybe that's why it's louder. But then the CVT, it is a CVT, right?
It is, yes.
Because it tricked me. It has these shift points in it, and I don't like CVTs usually, but they did a really good job with the shift points on this. So
so they're simulating.
If I didn't know that,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think they've done a really good job. And you point, the noise aspect too is the hybrids can make it so quiet that now you are hearing wind noise, road noise, stuff, and this has been an EV and a hybrid issue, that those are now so prominent because you're not hearing all the engine noise. That's true. Wow. And I agree. Like some wind noise is very
it depends on the tone and things like that. So certainly people are susceptible to different things, but I definitely notice tire noise, wind noise. And then you do get some engine noise if you're like, chugging up a hill or trying to merge onto the highway. That CVT, you at that point, I think, know it's a CVT, and it just, the RPMs shoot up and you accelerate. But, once you're up to speed, it kind of calms itself down a little bit.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that, it brings out, we'll have this ratings meeting that we have at the end, and we're going to have to hash out not just what the rating is, which may be somewhere in the middle, but how to describe it in the story now, so people can say, wind noise doesn't normally bother me, and pick out what the bothersome things are. Inside the cabin, it's not that much different, I don't think, than the regular.
No, as far as it's pretty basic, like A to B transport. You get in and it feels okay, nothing special, but there's decent.
There's nothing like the CR-V2 for access. It's like Forester, CR-V, just the height. You just slide in, slide out. The other thing too, for me, is the controls. So little spoiler alert, we'll talk about this a little on the upcoming Accords that we now have too. But I get out of the R1S into the Honda CR-V Hybrid. And in terms of controls and knowing how to, driving the car and operating the car, knowing how to operate anything in the car, oh my gosh, it was like a refreshing,
those are like two polar opposites going from one to the other.
Dichotomy of controls. Yeah. So did you find the same?
Yeah, well, so funny, I actually was in the R1T right before I drove the CR-V with Alex down to New York City for the auto show.
Right.
So it was very just refreshing. We just went on our way and we were able to basically operate everything.
Yep.
It was I thought the interior was very adequate, very durable. Yep. And I really like the dark headliner. It's kind of like a cave in there.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate that. It's probably not the best for photos and things, but it's a really nice driving experience because of that, I think.
Do you fit well? Alex is tall, you're tall.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Seats are maybe a little narrow just for me, but I think for most people it'd probably be okay.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that, because I was going to say there's actually pretty decent bolster support, and I kind of like that.
And you're narrow, you're narrower.
I like that kind of seating position. And then one little thing about the inside, and I think many new Hondas are doing this. I like the little things for some reason, but the air conditioning vents are kind of cool, and the way that you operate and move those around.
Right.
So,
it's the honeycomb Honda style, but they're easy.
They are. Yeah. You don't have, it's not.
Yeah, the dashing's very cluttered. You just have sort of like a long seamless vent.
Yeah.
And I would say almost infinite adjustability on those, and they're very easy. You can just sort of find them without looking for them, and that's nice. Yeah,
this is a car that's high on livability for sure. And again, it's traditional shifter. All the climate controls are there. Even the wheel controls. You come out of the R1S and nothing. It has two little thumb wheels and a couple of arrows. Nothing's labeled. It actually changes function depending on what you select in the screen. And then you get in this and it says volume, cruise control. Everything's labeled. Jagundis touchscreen buttons. One thing I know you and I were talking about is in ours 7-inch screen.
Yes.
You still have to plug in for CarPlay
you
and
do.
Android Auto.
Interestingly, there's actually two USBs. There's a regular USB and a C.
Okay.
And when Alex and I were driving into the city, we only had a USB-C cable with us, and I plugged my phone into it, and the C only charges your phone.
I did notice that.
So we had to have just the nav on my phone. We didn't have a regular cable with us. I double-checked that this morning. I went out there with two cables just to make sure we were accurate about it, and we talked about it. And you do have to plug in for Android Auto or CarPlay.
To the USB regular.
Correct.
To the regular
USB.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it seems a bit, honestly, in this day and age when we have wireless, so a little bit antiquated there in my mind. Really?
I agree.
I have to plug in, I have to dig and get my cord out, which a lot of people don't even travel with them anymore.
No, I guess if it's your one car, you sort of have the cord in the car and it lives there.
Yeah.
If you're maybe, multiple cars in the house, you might not have the cord with you, and that could become an issue. Optional
9-inch screen that gets you higher trims, gets you wireless. I think they should trickle that down.
I agree with that.
I think so too.
7-inch. Interesting. What Honda has said is that it wants to sell half of its CR-Vs in hybrid form, which is the goal. That remains to be seen, but it's certainly, in the words we put in it's made a gas electric combo really palatable to the masses, to that fourth best-selling vehicle in the United States. So just quick, hybrid or regular CR-V?
I think I'd honestly pick the regular one just because of that price premium.
Yeah, about $4,500.
Yeah.
So just to me, non-hybrid $28,410 to $35,760. Hybrid $32,950 to $39,100. So, Mike?
Yeah, there's definitely a price consideration there. The mechanic in me likes simplicity, so that lends toward the regular gas only. But I did really like this hybrid version. I think there are enough positives there.
Yep.
Especially if you do a lot of in-town city driving, you are going to see increased economy. You'd have to drive a lot, I think, to pay yourself back on that premium. But I kind of believe the hybrid might also carry some resale value, when you are done with the vehicle above a gas one. So I would go with the hybrid.
Yeah. And if it gets 40 city, 34 highway, 37 overall, I would absolutely opt for the hybrid. So we shall wait and see if it does that. We have had hybrids in the past who don't quite meet those EPA numbers. So, of course, we will have full test results on both the CR-V regular and hybrid at consumerreports.org. All the details when we are finished testing, and you can make a choice. So moving on to your questions, keep them coming. talkingcars@icloud.com. They really give a ton of flavor, I think, to what people are thinking about. So this one today comes from Kyle in Vestal, New York. And Kyle says, first of all, I love the show. There's nothing really like it in the podcast world. Well, that's for sure, Kyle, and thank you. I currently drive a 2019 Honda Passport Touring. Sorry, I ran out of breath. And my wife and I are planning to start our own family soon. If you were soon to be a new dad, which of these three cars would you choose when looking for a blend of driving engagement, safety, and daily functionality? Subaru WRX, Honda Civic Sport Touring, or Toyota Corolla GR? First of all, congratulations, Kyle, for when and if children are coming. But I'm going to go to you, Steve. From a new dad perspective, or a dad of two little girls right now doing the whole thing, what is your answer for Kyle?
Well, Kyle, I don't think you're going to like my answer because I was in the same situation as you were a couple of years ago. I had a bunch of, sporty Audis, and I said, I'm going to keep driving those. And that has changed considerably. I love big SUVs now. It's honestly just so much easier to get the girls in and out of. I drive them, at half, if not more, as my wife too. So I want to have a big car as well. So it's easy to get them in and out and put a stroller in the back. So I'd get a Kia Telluride or something in that case. I know it's a different price range, but that is really what I'm doing now. Though I would like to answer you for that class if you really are going to stick with it. And I applaud you if you can stick with that.
Yes.
But I think the answer is GTI if you're going to get something in that class because my kids fit pretty well. I know that wasn't on your list, but I'm suggesting something else.
Wait a minute, he didn't say GTI.
I think out of those three that he showed, I would choose GTI as another option because we fit quite well as a family in that one, even though it's small.
Yeah. Do you find yourself, I'm just listening to you, when you go for the weekend, and again, we've shared that we rotate cars. Do you find yourself really thinking about when you go for a weekend car, I'm going to have those girls as opposed to going back and forth for work during the week?
Yes.
Yeah.
I definitely have, I want to try out everything. So I have my weekday cars and then the weekend cars. I try to get the biggest thing possible.
Even I remember when my kids were little, they're big now, but roadsters, I can't take that. Yeah. Even picking up, daycare and stuff, I could never take them. So anyway, Mike, any thoughts?
Yeah, I applaud you for trying to stick with these cars. Real quick to address the cars that you're thinking about, Kyle. The WRX, it's loud. I can't imagine putting a little child in the back seat. That cold startup. If they're asleep, they won't be for long. And I always sort of get excited about the WRX, but then after I drive, I'm less so excited. The Civic Sport Touring, I think, is a good choice if you want to stick, with these three vehicles. You can still get the stick, you get the hatchback. It's a little bit softer, a little bit more livable. Yep. I've been driving our Civic Si all week. It's been great. The Corolla GR is a riot. It's a ton of fun, but it's wide body. There's side skirts and stuff. It would be a lot of work putting the seat in and putting the child in the back and things like that. Yep. Although, it is a special car.
Also a little loud.
It is loud as well. Yep, like the WRX.
Yep.
But the GTI was actually sort of on my list as a possible alternative. You can get the Integra, like the Civic. There is going to be a Type S Integra coming out that is bump up in horsepower and a little bit of wide body. Otherwise, if you're sticking with the manual, it's really tough. There's not a lot of choices unless you're looking at M2, M3, the Cadillac Blackwings, Camaro, Challenger, Mustang, Elantra N. Again, that's kind of like race car-y, probably a little too loud and harsh for a family. So I got to say, there's a reason why families are in minivans and SUVs.
Right.
They just work.
And I agree that part of the engagement is the manual. No more like Legacy. I know you could get an Outback or a Legacy with a manual.
I did some investigation. It seems like
the
Forester
rare.
2018 was last year. You could get a stick in that. The Crosstrek 22 or 23 is the last year. That's going away. So it's tough.
Yeah.
It's really, really tough.
So Honda is one of the few that's still making a regular sedan with a manual.
I agree, yeah. And I think it's a livable choice with the hatch and, like this CR-V, the controls are easy to use.
Yep.
I don't have children, but your focus is going to be on that child more so than figuring out how to use touch screens and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
You just want a car that you can live with that's pretty straightforward.
Oh, you will not have, Kyle, there will be no more focus. You just will be focused on them all the time. But I said similar, only in that it's not just the kid and the child seat. They come with so much stuff. You'll have all this stuff. So even if you get the people in comfortably, you may not get all the stuff in comfortably. But I went right back to the number. So Emily, of course, takes every car we test, puts child seats in it. How do they fit? How accessible are the latch anchors and the belts and the top tethers and all of that goes with it? The Civic Sport has a 5. It's excellent for child seat fit. So WRX was good, 4.0 overall. Civic Sport has an end of trip reminder. It has rear belt minders, because I think the other thing when you're getting that family car is you have to think of a few years down the road. Unless you're someone that's flipping cars really frequently, how does this fit when they're in a booster seat now? How does this fit when they're not in a child restraint anymore? I got even thinking at one point about a car, I think my kids were like 12 and 7 maybe, is this going to be a car that they're going to be driving? Like, you really have to anticipate the next stages. So for me, it's the Civic Sport with that excellent child seat fit, little bit more room, keep the manual, and maybe a GTI. So great question, Kyle. We actually get that a lot. That and how do I put 3 child seats across of any car? But ideally, maybe something a little larger. I think you'll end up being happier even if you have to forego.
That Civic, though, or Civic Si, that surprised me when I put 2 car seats in it, actually.
Yeah.
That now that you bring that up, it was good. Yeah. That's a good choice.
Even, and I know you've experienced this, Stephen, when they're rear facing. Do you have to, does your passenger now have to shift that front seat back forward to even fit? Because you can't be putting a ton of pressure there. It just has to be touching. So anyway, a lot to consider. It's a big change in so many ways. So that'll do it for this episode. I kind of like this new format. It feels like a conversation here. So keep watching, keep listening, and we'll see you next time.